today we will be looking into what is big data. We will try to understand the features, importance, usage, structure, benefits, applications, and also the risks of big data. Big data is one of the next big things in the IT world. It emerged during the first decade of the 21st century, and some of the pioneers to make use of big data were Google, eBay, LinkedIn, Facebook, and some more. Big data is very much similar to small data, just that it is bigger in size with respect to data, and therefore the techniques used or the tools used and the architecture used to store this data is also different. However, we would define big data as it generates value from storage and processing of very large quantities of digital information that cannot be analyzed with traditional computing techniques. Now, why do we need big data at all? It helps in increase of storage capacities, increase of processing power, and the ability of data with respect to different. What is data? Data is raw, unorganized facts that need to be processed. Example, each student would have scored a particular mark in a test, which is a piece of data. However, information is when that data is processed, organized, structured, and presented in a given context such that it is useful in some way. For example, I know that the student has got 35 marks or the student has got 95 marks. But I do not know whether 35 marks means pass or fail, and at the same time, the 95 marks, I do not know whether the student is a rank holder or whether the student stands second or third in class. Now, what are the features of this big data? The term describes voluminous amount of structures, semi-structures or unstructured data that has the potential to be mined for information. The features can be classified as volume, velocity and variety, whereby volume we mean the huge amount of data, that is the quantity. Velocity indicates the speed and the variety indicates the different types of data, whereby it could be a data sheet, it could be an audio file or a video file. Now, who are the users of big data? Walmart handles more than 1 million customer transactions every hour, which indicates several people who handle a particular database in a single time. Facebook handles more than 40 million photos from its users base. And finally, decoding the human genome originally took more than 10 years to process. However, now it can be done within a week's time. Now, how are we going to store this massive data, which is called as big data? The storage again could be categorized as analyzing the characteristics of your data and also overviewing the data stores. So how would you analyze the characteristics of this big data? That is by selecting data sources for analysis, eliminating redundant data, establishing the role of NoSQL. The overviewing of the big data stores. The key data models would be the key values, the graphs, the document, or the column family. The Hadoop distributed file system can be used. HBase or even H5 is used for overviewing of the big data stores. Big data, we said, is very big and voluminous. Now, how big is this big data and how is it different? Automatically, it is generated by a machine. Example, it could be a sensor embedded in an engine. Typically, an entirely new source of data. Example, use of the internet. Next, it is not designed to be friendly or user-friendly. Example, text streams. And finally, it may not have much values. It needs to focus on the important parts. what is the structure? This big data, we understood it can be classified as structured, semi-structured and unstructured big data. So structured is more of the traditional data sources, semi-structured is more of the uh, sources of the big data, and finally unstructured are the video or audio information. The structured data can be defined as that data which has a repeating pattern. This makes it easy for any program to either sort, read or to process. The processing structured data is much faster and easier than processing data without any repeating pattern. However, unstructured data is slightly different. It is a set of data that might or might not have any logical or repeating patterns, typically of metadata, that is the additional information which is related to data. It is made up of inconsistent data, which could be either from social media websites or satellites or even files. The data can be in different formats like audio, video, text, images, mails. The sources for unstructured data could be social media, mobile text, text both internal and external belonging to organization. Semi-structured data, having a schemeless or self-describing structure, which refers to a form of structured data that contains tags or markup element in order to separate the elements and generate hierarchies of records and fields from a given data, would be classified as semi-structured data. In other words, data is stored consistently in rows and columns of a database. The source could be from file systems such as web data in the form of cookies, data exchange formats, and so on. Now, what is the benefit of this big data? It is the cost and management, the reduced time of deployment, the scaling up process, the reliability, and the sustainability, which contribute towards some of the benefits of having big data in today's world. Applications of big data are varied. There are numerous applications which I have been able to classify into few dimensions, beginning with healthcare system, security system, traffic control, industrial manufacturing units, multi-channel sales organizations, telecom industry, trading analytics, and in quality control systems. Now, what is the risk of big data? If so, is there any risk of having big data? It will be so overwhelmed that the need for the right people to solve the right problem is very, very essential. The cost escalates very, very fast, and sometimes many sources of big data is privacy, like self-regulation and legal regulations. These are some of the references which will help you to understand big data in depth. Thank you very much.